What's good, YouTube? Or Storm here, coming at you guys in the video today. Today I'm bringing you my Zefra Deck Profile. I did try the deck a little bit out at Nats, mostly in side events, and while I didn't do too hot with the deck, I definitely think it has some strong points. Zefras are a pretty neat little pendulum deck. While they lack what magicians have on terms of offensive, they more than make up for it in their defensive prowess. So one of the things I really do like about the deck, as opposed to magicians, which are a little more aggressive, this deck is a little more reactive, and that's one of the things that makes it really, really strong. You still play a lot of the same cards, but overall I think Zephyrs are a pretty neat little pendulum deck, and I've always had an attachment to the deck ever since the deck first came out. But before we get started, I want to kind of briefly mention this little card here, which is Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser. This is a card I currently don't play in my list, but I really do like it because a lot of players, so if you're unfamiliar, of course you guys know in the Pendulum Zone it can special summon itself if you control no monsters once per duel. But the cool thing is you can actually normal summon this, and it sits on 2200 due to its effect that it buffs itself by 1100 when you control no other monsters. So you can actually outnet these with this. So I would highly recommend trying this in any Pendulum deck if you're having trouble outing that beast. But I don't want to spend too much more time on this. But overall, I actually do want to find a room for this. So if you guys see room, please let me know before I get too much further. So anyway, well, on the way, we'll go ahead and get the deck profile. So the first card, of course, is 3 copies of Zefra. In my previous build with the Yang Zings, I did think I played 2, and there's some you can play 2. I personally want a 3 because I want to see this card all the time as much as possible. Zefra is an absolutely amazing card. In the Pendulum Zone, you can actually use this effect to set any Zefra monster straight from your deck to the extra deck. So that means because it's set straight from the deck, it bypasses things like Macrocosmos, Dark Law, etc., which is really, really good, and it changes its scale based on what you put. So that's one of the reasons why if you play, no matter how many Zephyrs you play, you want to keep the ratios pretty similar in terms of like having 4 of one high scale and 4 of low scales. It's a pretty fantastic card. It's just a shame you can't Pendulum summon twice with it. You can't, with, Master Rule 4 being a thing. Then for the Yang Zing Zephyrs, I play the 3 Zefraxi and the 2 Nui. So I just call them Nui. But anyways, if you're unfamiliar with these cards, Zefraxi upon Pendulum Summon will allow you to turn any of your Zefra or Yang Zing monsters into tuners. So that's really powerful because you can make, the best plays any Zefra deck has are the synchro plays, comboing with the field spell. Nui upon Pendulum Summon or being destroyed in the monster zone will allow you to search your Zefra or Yang Zing spells or traps. Really combos well with 9 pillars because you can pop it, and then search Zefra Providence or War, any of those other powerful cards. Just important to know that this Electromite will cause this to miss timing, so do not try to pop it and get Electromite's effect. It doesn't work that way. Fortunately, I wish it did. Then to round out the Zefra lineup, I actually have 1 Zefra Sidon, 1 Thuban, and 1 Windy. Windy's probably my favorite Zefra monster because she, especially in Master Rule 4, when upon normal or Pendulum Summon, she'll allow you to fetch back any of your Zefra monsters back from your extra deck. So you can add a Zefroth back for next turn, you can add back any of those kind of missing pieces you need. But it's important to remember she does have that Ritual Beast clause, which means if she is, if you do special summon her, she can't be special summoned again for the rest of the turn. Important to know that. But Sidon and Thuban are fantastic. Whenever they are normal, flipped, or Pendulum summoned, you can actually target a Zefra card you control besides themselves, and Sidon targets sets, Thuban targets face-ups. They both get destroyed. These are really good cards at baiting out stuff. If you have a Zefra card, either the field spell or anything else, you have the field spell or a monster in the Pendulum Zone, you activate that, normal summon one of these guys, bait out things. It's important against, especially against like Sky Strikers, to be able to bait out their back row before they make a push, and especially things like Scapegoat, etc. You don't want them activating those in end phase. These are really, really good cards. And that rounds out the Zefra lineup at I believe 11 monsters. Now we're going to get the more generic Pendulum engines. Of course we have the 3 Chronographs and the 1 Time Gazer Magician. If you do play Chronograph at all, you have to play this because it'll clump up in your hand. But anyways, Chronograph is still a fantastic card. Obviously, it's not as strong as our boy Astrograph, but it's fantastic at being able to special summon extra resources from the hand. And overall, it's a level 6 as well, so it's got a good level if you do happen to be using something like I don't know, level 1 Strudo for some reason. Time Gazer's monster effect actually can come up at times to protect your scales as well. And if you think your opponent has Ghost Ogre, you just leave this out and then activate Zefra. They try to Ghost Ogre, you still get the effect. Really good cards. Then for the, of course, the Scream Kings, we had the two Dark Worms and the 1 Gate 0. So glad to have my Hollow Dark Worms. But anyways, Dark Worm is a fantastic card. Basically, if you Foolish Burial Dragon Shrine it, you can special summon out of the graveyard and control no monsters. Really, really strong. Use your free monster to make your Electromite plays, but also searches a gate upon normal or special summon. It's a great engine. The only reason I don't run 3 is because it's not the best card in your hand. Unlike other Pendulum decks, you kind of need your normal summon. But I just find 2 to be kind of like the best ratio. You don't want to see a bunch of them in your hands. Main thing, really strong. I'd really do like that. And Gate 0 is just a good level 7 to be able to use, and it's a good scale as well. Then we have the Mythical Package, which is the form of 3 Cerberus and the 2 Jackal King. I did try, again, running Terraforming and some other cards instead of these, but I just prefer this because while unlike Magicians, you aren't necessarily 100% reliant on resolving Electromite turn 1, you definitely are reliant on... So it's definitely getting to it pre-Pendulum Summon is really good. So that's kind of where these cards come in. Cerberus is fantastic going second and being able to banish and things and bait out things, and Jackal King is great at being able to negate monster effects essentially for free. It's important to know that and if you have multiples of these out, it's not a hard once per turn, so you can actually negate multiple things. Pretty cute, pretty dang good. And that rounds out the Pendulum lineup for the last kind of non-hand trap based monster, the 1 Destrudo. While I do think that Destrudo is a card you can definitely negotiate because of the new time rule, is definitely a card you should side out going into time. It's still fantastic being able to out entire boards just with a Foolish Burial or Dragon Shrine and a monster. It still is really key and important to a lot of the combos, at least in my testing. And I do think you still need it. It is still a credible card, new time rules or not. Then for the hand traps, of course, we have the 2 Droll and Lackbirds and the 1 Ogre. Ogre is mostly here because I play Emergency Teleport in this list, so it's just another tuner to special summon out of the deck. But with Zefras, you can inherently search out Droll with the combos, so you really don't need to play a massive amount, but you're gonna have a hard time against Gokis and Sky Strikers anyways. So that's one of the reasons why I figure you don't want to run. If you don't like hand traps, you can definitely take Drolls out and play Call by the Grave instead. It's really up to you, but I play these because I don't have my Ash, but in my testing, I found Droll to be just as good or almost as good as Ash in most situations. Then, of course, for the Zefra spells, we have the 3 Oracle and the 3 Providence. Oracle is a fantastic field spell. Upon activation, you can add any Zefra monster straight from your deck, which is absolutely amazing. But the other thing about Oracle is that it allows you to stack your deck it gets different effects based on what you make with it, which provided you use Zefra monster as material. So as long as you make a synchro using a Zefra monster, you get to stack a monster on top of your deck. A lot of the cards such as Electromite and other Starter's Charge allow you to draw cards. So you can essentially search out hand traps with this and draw a card really good. Providence is essentially an e-call for any Zefra cards. So you can search the counter trap with this. You can search any of your Zefra monsters. You can search this. It's really, really super fantastic. It also has a kind of Gospel Revival effect in your grave to protect your Zefra monsters after the turn it's sent. So it makes your boards a little stickier and harder to break. Pretty damn good cards. Would never play anything less than 3. Then for the other spells, for the last few spells, we have the 1 Foolish Burial, the 2 Dragon Shrines, and the Emergency Teleport. So Itali is kind of an interesting little card. It allows you, I like it because it's both useful offensively and defensively. If you set it, you can actually get a Ghost Ogre out of your deck to disrupt your opponent on their turn, but mostly this is going to grab Wendy from your deck to get you an Electromite before you Pendulum Summon. These 3 cards are absolutely pivotal to the strategy. You want to get your Dark Worm and Destrudo in the graveyard. The main reason I'm playing 2 Dark Worms is because I want to play the extra Shrine, because I wasn't really seeing Destrudo enough. So these cards are absolutely, I'd play these cards for sure. I do like the Emergency Teleport a lot. It's a pretty neat little spicy tech. Then for the traps, of course, the Zefra, so we're playing 1 of each of these in the form of Zefra War, 9 Pillars of the Yang Zing, and 1 Divine Strike. As I mentioned earlier, you can actually search this with Zefra Providence. It's a counter trap that negates a spell or trap by banishing a Zefra face up from your extra deck. Pretty simple stuff. It does destroy. Pillars is actually really good as well in combination with Nui because you can pop Nui to get a search like I mentioned earlier, and it shuffles the target back. It doesn't destroy. So it's really good against things like BA and stuff like that floats. And War is kind of like a Typhoon. Whenever it's basically kind of like it targets a Zephyr card and targets a card your opponent controls, destroys them both. But if you have 2 Zephyrs in your Pendulum Zone, you pop both. So I'm iffy on it though because I don't always have 2 Zephyrs in my Pendulum Zone. But I do think the card is absolutely fantastic. So rounds out the main deck. For the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. I'm going to be honest, I don't really make 2. The second one, I do think you could definitely play the third, but honestly, I feel like that this deck, you need this, but you don't need it, is what I mean. Because you have Zefra to stack things on the top of your deck. Honestly, Electromite is kind of like one of those cards that just allows you to gets you to the, kind of replaces the advantage lost from Pendulum Summoning. It is still a brutally amazing card. And I do think that but I don't think in Zephyrs you really necessarily need 3. You don't really go through 3 like I used to with Magicians. But that being said, it is an amazing card. Being able to stack things on top of your extra deck, then add them straight back, and draw cards is amazing. It's always going to be good. Then we have the 1 Underclock Taker for the only other Link 2. I love this card. This card tends to be the first thing I put in almost all my extra decks. Being able to it's just a good Link monster, being able to open up more zones. But on top of that, it also allows you to reduce monsters' attacks so you can OTK going second. Really good card. Really like it. Then for the Link 3s, I have the Zefra Metaltron and the Decode Talker. Zephyrs don't have the biggest monsters attack value-wise. That's kind of where Decode comes in. It's just a big beater, if I'm completely honest. Metaltron, actually being a Zephyr monster, comes up because you can use the continuous spell to protect it. And whenever someone's extra deck that it points to are destroyed, it can fetch back Chronograph so you don't die. They're just great cards, and I'd really... but Decode Talker's pretty negotiable, but I do like having it in there. Then for the last Link monster, the 1 Borlo Dragon. I'm going to be honest, I have not touched Borlo Dragon once in testing, so it could be something I cut. It's also not great against Sky Striker, but I do still think the card is pretty dang decent and can be a way to clear things going second. So it is a pretty negotiable spot. If you feel like there's something else better to play, just play it. But I do think Borlo is a pretty decent card, so it's just in here. Then, of course, we have for the non-Link monsters, we have the Odd Eyes package, the Absolute, the Meteor Burst, the Vortex. Really powerful cards. You do make Meteor Burst a fair amount more in this deck because it gives you another way to access this without using all Zephyr monsters. And I really like this combination because it's good going first, obviously, because you end on a Vortex, but it can also be good going second because you can make Absolute Dragon and then... use its attack and use its effect to bring this back. So it's really powerful to allow you to get over things that trigger in the battle phase, which this deck kind of can struggle with floaters like Burning Abyss. And bringing out a free Vortex is always really, really good. So you have a lot of negotiable extra deck space, so I don't see why you wouldn't play that. Then for the only level 6 I play the 1 Stardust Charge Warrior. The card is absolutely amazing in this deck. Being able to use this with a field spell to search hand traps is just amazing. But on top of that, it's also good against Scapegoat tokens if your opponent. It can attack all special summon monsters once each. So if you bait your opponent's Scapegoat, you can actually use this to clear them all out of the way. Really, really good card. And it's also level 6, so you can actually overlay it to make Naruto. Then for the level 7s, besides, of course, the Meteor Burst, we have the 1 Yazi, the 1 the 1 Black Rose Dragon, and the 1 FA Dawn Dragster. So Black Rose, as I mentioned earlier, is a card, while it is a Pendulum deck and you won't always make it, I do like having the option to be able to clear your opponent's board going second with just a couple cards. That's always going to be really strong. And Yazi's a good card, just decent card in general, because you can actually pop it with Electromite to kind of get pieces out of your deck. But the main thing is it's kind of big, untargetable beater, and that does give a lot of some of the top tier decks some trouble. Dawn Dragster's a pretty decent card, just to have some more negation, but it's also good as well, being able to do piercing damage your opponent happens to flip Scapegoat if you're playing against something like Sky Strikers or Trickstar. Then, kind of one of the more interesting launch next deck, I actually have 1 copy of Chow Fang. So you guys have never seen this card, are completely unfamiliar, like, what the heck does it do? So whenever, while it's on the board, Synchro Summon on the board, it actually cuts off monster effects from what it makes. So what you're like, well, what am I making it with? They're actually making this with Zefroxy and Zefranio. So that means that this will be negate all Earth monsters effect, which means Goki cannot play while this sits on the board. Not only that, Nightmare Cerberus is also an Earth monster, so they can't even use Nightmare to get this off the board. It gives Goki a lot of problems. They can't really deal with this at all, and it's just a great. And if they do try to start setting monsters and set Earth monsters, it can grab those Earth monsters from the deck. And on top of that, they do manage to pop it some ways, shape, or form. You get to search a tuner from your deck, so really good card. Then for the last monster in the extra deck, of course, we have the one Dorito. Having some more spell and trap negation is always nice. So anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think of my Zefra Deck profile down in the comment section down below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. So Orstorm, signing out.